The planet of dreams is in a sign of manifestation and action. So what are your dreams and what is the likelihood of them manifesting for you in the coming 14 years? I'm Kesenya. I'm going to tell you how the stars are going to affect your life this week. Welcome to the Astro News and Weather Report for the final week of January 2026. This is tropical Vedic astrology, not sidereal, look it up. And yes, I'm a real person, not AI. We will cover this week's Astro News and then your personal forecast by sign. Use the timestamps, and if it resonates, please help my channel to grow by liking, subscribing and sharing this video. Let's get going. First of all, this week on the 28th of January, we have quite the combination. Mars conjunct Pluto. Now, it's not every day that these two do a tango, and that's probably a good thing. In the negative, it can cause conflict. It can cause hurt. It can cause trauma, as well as self-destructive behaviors. What a lucky thing this only happens roughly every 2 years. However, we can use all the energies for good if we choose. Rock on, free will in all circumstances. It brings out a desire in us to fight for something. So let's make that something worthwhile. Something to do with rebalancing injustices that are all around us in the world right now. Something honorable. Something that we are righteously passionate about. Let's use this energy to create good in the world rather than to cause more disruption. Also on the 28th of January, we are entering into the solar new moon eclipse season. It begins on the 28th of January, and this is for the eclipse on February the 17th at 28 degrees of Aquarius. So essentially what I'm saying here is we are going to be in the energy of that eclipse beginning on the 28th of January. I'll talk more about that eclipse in upcoming episodes of the Astro Weather Report here at the Guiding Star Astrology channel. So do tune in to find out what that eclipse has in store for you. However, we are going to be in that energy. You might notice strange shifts occurring, fated events, certain things happening that seem a little bit out of the ordinary and seem a little bit predestined perhaps, as is the nature of an eclipse brought on by the nodes of the moon that are all about our past karma and our future destiny. On the 29th of January, we're going to be entering into an energy that's fairly consistent. We see this on a fairly regular basis. This is Mercury in a conjunction with Venus. Now, this is a gorgeous time to tell somebody that you love them. Even though these two planets are combust, it's still a great time to share your love with someone else. It's also fantastic for personal and social interactions. We can get our point across and express our feelings so much better than we might otherwise be able to do. Many of us may be on the receiving end of displays of love and affection from others, and this is an energy that is somewhat notorious for bringing people together, resolving conflicts, and moving relationship dynamics forward. You can also get creative with your hands around the 29th of January, make, design, and produce whatever excites you. And if you need to sign contracts, this energy is actually a favorable energy to utilize for contract signing. The big one this week, though, and we're going to step back a couple of days, we're going to be looking at the 27th of January. And this is a real biggie. It's one of the epochs of 2026 astral energies. Basically, we've got the big gun Neptune moving into the sign of Aries, where he's going to remain for the next 14 years. And this is going to bring massive changes to everything we've known for the last 14 years while he's been in Pisces. Big shifts of energy. So let's take a look at this in depth right now. This is actually what I believe to be the biggest energetic shift since Pluto moved into Aquarius permanently in the last couple of years. This is Neptune in Aries. Now, Neptune is the belief that there is enough for everyone and that dreams can become reality. Neptune is one of the karmic planets. It is a creative and artistic planet. In natal charts, Neptune will always be strongest when he's placed on an angle, the 1st, the 4th, the 7th, or the 10th house, or when Neptune is placed in conjunction with the sun or the moon in a person's chart. This is one of the indicators of a highly evolved soul. You actually need a few more indicators than just that, but this is one of them. If there are good Western aspects to Neptune, only good Western aspects to Neptune in the natal chart, it is a signature that Neptune's highest good is going to unfold in your life as life goes on. And your life may experience many dreams coming true or miracles unfolding in due time. If your Neptune in your natal chart has only harsh aspects, it's actually a signature that you are on a journey to learn Neptune's lessons of compassion, forgiveness, and unconditional love in this lifetime as a karmic repercussion for past lives when maybe you didn't learn those lessons or you didn't embrace those lessons. Now, if you have a mixed bag of aspects to your natal Neptune, it suggests, naturally enough, mixed results from Neptune in this lifetime as a karmic retribution. Some good, some bad, some miracles, some deceptions, some disappointments, and some disillusionment. Neptune's results usually manifest very strongly or most noticeably after the age of 48. This is similar to the Ketu or South Node maturation in Vedic astrology, but in the Western system, we would consider it to be a Neptune maturation, if you like. So for everybody keen to the key to working with Neptune energy is to keep the faith. Keep believing in your dreams. Don't become bitter or cynical. Keep on hoping in the face of your disappointments. Keep believing. Neptune often withholds his magical blessings in whatever area of life he resides in your chart until later in life, when you have learnt to give unconditionally to life and have kept the faith. Now, if you can do that, and it's a big ask, I know, in this day and age for sure, but if you can do that, Neptune often gives you your longings to some degree or another based on the quality of Neptune in your chart, which I just described. Now, I met the love of my life, David, in my 48th year. That was 14 years as a single mum after Neptune moved into Pisces, and my 48th year occurred just as Neptune was beginning to make his exit from the sign of Pisces. So 14 years during his sojourn through Pisces, I was a single mum, and then at my 48th year when Neptune matured, believing all this time while I was a single mother that my soulmate would come, if not in this lifetime, then in another. That was part of my belief foundation. I believed that Neptune, or rather my soulmate, would be worth waiting for. And then along came Neptune maturation. David entered my life. David is my Neptune miracle. What's your Neptune miracle if you're older than 48? Has something magical happened in your life corresponding to what Neptune represents in your chart? Now, let's take a look at Neptune in Aries. This is going to be active. It started last year, but it's becoming permanent this year on the 27th of January. So from 2025 to 2039, Neptune is activating the Aries component of your natal chart. And we'll break it down for all signs shortly. Neptune is full of energy. Neptune's themes are energized. So we might find people, that's what happens when Neptune is in Aries. We might find people on their own personal spiritual crusade in some sort of bold, passionate way. This is not about dreaming the Neptune dreams and just getting lost in the dreams themselves. That's Neptune in Pisces energy. This energy is about bringing those dreams to reality, making them manifest in the earth realm. When we look back at Neptune in Pisces, one question we need to ask of ourselves is, what have we been deceived over in the past 14 years? And let's face it, many of us on the planet right now are waking up to where we've had the wool pulled over our eyes in big collective ways, but also take a look at your personal life. In what ways have you been deceived about life, about your role, about the potential your life has, especially over the last 14 years? Well, it's in that area that you will now get very passionate about making change and actively moving away from the deception. In that sense, it is a quite exciting and transformative time. At the same time, some of you may not believe a traditional religion or buy into ideals of dogma and so forth that we do see around us in certain belief systems. I feel that for many of us, while Neptune is in Aries, we're going to move into a more individual approach to belief. Neptune in Aries questions long-held beliefs and ideals. We tend to seek alternatives to what it was that we grew up with. If indeed we grew up in a belief system, particularly a structured belief system, we may be seeing that dissolve away now as Neptune moves into Aries. This energy is all about raising humanity to a higher plane of existence, and obviously this can be done through peaceful ways, energetically lifting us up, or it can happen through crisis or antagonistic circumstances that through suffering cause us to level up. Let's hope it's the former rather than the latter for humanity. It's also time to step out and start imaginative projects. When Neptune is in Aries, Neptune is imagination, Aries is creativity. In fact, Neptune has quite a good dose of creativity as well. So it's really a time when we're going to see amazing forward momentum around creative projects like music and art and literature. There can be radical changes in those fields for the next 14 years. If you're an artist, or if you like artistry, we need to really focus on following our intuitive impulses at this time to attain our best work. It's also time to focus on our survival needs. Aries is the pioneer energy and the survivor energy. So you might have many creative ideas on how to survive and thrive and flourish in your earthly reality. One thing to be very careful of is idealizing battles, my friends, of all types, personal battles and even global wars. No idealizing that sort of thing. And we need to be very, very conscious of being propagandized into a narrative of war and aggression over the next 14 years. Deceived into thinking it's the right thing to send our young men and women off to be killed for some greater good. That is something to be very wary of with Neptune in the sign of war. Don't get me wrong, there are times when military defense is required, but most wars are not fought today for that purpose. They're fought so that the elites can destroy nations, take resources, run drugs, traffic humans. It's disgraceful. And most soldiers know deep down that they have fought for horrible causes. We need to be very careful of this idea being pushed down our throats during this time frame, the next 14 years, while Neptune is in Aries. We might be getting propagandized to see glory and physical courage and warfare. Expect to see a lot of movies coming out around that topic. And we might see people willing to go to battle over a cause that they consider sacred, which in itself is not a bad thing to fight for something we believe in. Just, can I encourage everybody watching this to do their due diligence to determine the truth about what you're being asked to essentially kill people and cultures over. For many during this time, there is a blurry line between spirituality, Neptune, and war, Aries. People will get arrogant, dogmatic, and self-justifying over their warring and warrioring behavior. Be very conscious about that as you observe people around you and in your own life as well. One good thing, though, is that Neptune in Aries can cause many heroic people to rise up, and Lord knows we need this now. Frequently, these people have been murdered, as in the case of Lincoln, Kennedy, Luther King, Robert Kennedy, but there is always the chance that we will see Odysseus return and overthrow the suitors at this time, or at least someone who may do that in the future may be being born in the next 14 years at the very least. So you as an individual also, because Aries is a very individual sign, might enter your own personal heroic crusade of sorts. What are you needing to become a Superman or a Wonder Woman about in your own life? I just encourage you all not to miss the forest for the trees as you plow your way towards the achievement of your goals and dreams over the next 14 years. The big picture will be emphasized, not the small details. Now, Pisces was a dual sign. This is where Neptune has been before its move into Aries. Pisces is a dual sign going in two directions. Which way do I go? Do I go forward? Do I go backward? It's very dualistic. Naturally, it's a mutable sign. Aries, however, is goal-focused. It's direct. It's driven. It knows what it wants. So we become more focused when Neptune goes into Aries on the pursuit of Neptunian ideals, and we become less distracted and less confused. So that can play out in the collective I feel very beneficially. Less deception collectively, more focus and direction, provided we don't get propagandized, as I spoke of earlier. So this is a time where we may actually grow very skeptical of other people's opinions and beliefs. By now, at the end of the 14 years of Neptune in Pisces, many of us have mastered our own opinions, which is a very good thing, and we are less inclined to follow mass inclinations and mass indoctrinations. We are pioneering our way forward now, Neptune in Aries, including pioneering our own opinions and our own beliefs. So friends, this is a time of intense passion in our personal lives and the world at large. Are you ready? Are you ready? What's this going to mean in a nutshell? Well, let's talk about the action that is very Aries-like. Neptune in Aries is going to encourage people to take action and initiate things with more purpose, more focus, and more direction. We become more decisive about the path we're going to take to achieve our dreams and our visions under this energy. We're going to see people taking more initiative and even wanting to create utopian communities now. Very idealistic Neptune. No more daydreaming about it. This is the time for doing. Boldness is also another quality of Aries, and so with Neptune here, this is going to bring bold shifts in power and leadership, creative exploration, artistic endeavors. We're going to really take the boundaries away regarding boldness and really go where no man or woman has gone before. Innovation is another thing that Aries is renowned for, and with Neptune, the boundaryless here in this sign, this era will inspire creative pursuits in fields of many kinds, film, music, especially dance, but also in fields like spirituality and medicine, as well as the arts. So keep your eyes peeled for innovation during this time. Cultural trends can also go through a shift. Neptune is very connected to cultural movements, and cultural trends could really start to revolve around being more bold and being more brave, as is the nature of Aries. Now, because Aries is a fire sign and water is connected to the idea of Neptune, he was the god of the oceans after all, we may see water supplies become unreliable. Now, that may not necessarily be from natural causes. It could be from things like data centers taking all our water, etc. So do your due diligence there and explore where your water is going and why there's not enough water. And let's start action groups, Neptune in Aries, around the lack of water. That is a resource that the people of every culture are entitled to have. Clean, running, fresh water to support their lives. I would also add Neptune does have a connection to farming as well. So water and farming might become quite a strong issue. Has been where I grew up since I was born, and it's something that definitely needs to be restructured in Australia and taken away from the political leverage that they've given it. That's a whole other topic. People can also, in terms of cultural trends, start to follow their own spiritual paths. I talked about this. There is less interest in collective spirituality or religion now. It's more about I'm doing my research, I'm discovering this esoteric trend or this pagan idea, and I'm going to pursue what is right for me and leave what doesn't resonate anymore. I think this is a wonderful advance potentially for our cultures to step into more connected, if you like, individually connected spiritual pursuits and spiritual paths. Fashion and art can go through a shift now as well. So think action flicks, back to sort of, Terminator days or martial arts films or something like that. Sportswear might become, somehow more fashionable. We are already seeing this. I was talking with a girlfriend over New Year who was saying that her 20-something odd daughter loves to just wear bike shorts all the time, even out to parties and stuff like that. And my girlfriend who dresses vintage 50s just can't get it through her head that that's how the fashions have gone. But there can be also some risk-taking in fashion as well. Neptune is this cultural activity, and of course we've got Aries, which is sporty and risk-taking. So expect to see risque fashions on the catwalks. What's new there? But also risky art might become the norm, sort of cutting edge, something that is very definitive as well. Inspired, individual, and creative music and dance and film. It's going to be all around us now. And to be honest, it's about time we had a bit of a shift in where the music, film and dance genres were heading during Neptune in Pisces. Sports is an Aries related thing because, of course, the governing planet of Aries is Mars. Mars rules muscles and sporting activities of all sorts, as well as Aries. But what we're going to see with Neptune in Aries is high levels of achievement in water sports and dance, which are the sporting fields that Neptune has sort of dual governance over. People are also going to be very drawn to movement that connects them to spirituality. Very Neptunian energy. So things like yoga that can sort of postures that allow us to sort of get that electromagnetic juices, if you want to call them that, flowing through us that lead us to higher consciousness. Naturally enough, war and conflict are connected to Neptunian themes. So spiritual wars, Aries themes are war and conflict. Spiritual wars with Neptune in Aries, virtuous wars based around certain belief systems. Let's hope no wars based on propagandizing, which is also a highly Neptunian thing. Conflicts over intangible or irrational issues can also be very Neptunian. Neptune can be totally deceived. It can, like I said, have the wool pulled over its eyes. But Neptune is also rage. Rage because we've missed out. We've been hard done by. That's Neptunian rage. Now, you don't often hear many astrologers talking about this. I have a whole video series on Neptune's transit through the planets where I do discuss this in great length. If you want to know more, check out my Neptune playlist. Rage is a Neptunian thing. And here in Aries, the god of war, expect to see uprisings and lots of maybe political activity or activity by the masses about their rage over missing out. Think about, the millennials and my children's generation, Gen Z. Are they going to be able to afford to buy homes? Do they have the same quality of life that we, their parents, Gen Xers and baby boomers have had? No. Do you think they might get very rageful during this era of Neptune in Aries? I think so, and rightly so. And often it's only through rage and enacting our rage that we see the change that is needed. Like what happened in Nepal when the young generations who are sick of being dictated to by the old farts in government rose up, kicked them out, paraded them naked down the street and took over the government. Expect that might be more par for the course than not when Neptune is in Aries. Okay, so we've got Neptune moving into Aries 26th, 27th of January, depending where you are in the world. And Neptune is going to leave Aries on May the 21st or 22nd, depending again where you are in the world, in 2038. So this is quite a generational period of our lives. Now, let's just quickly look at a couple of historical associations. Neptune in Aries has always been associated with religious wars and revolutionary causes, because the last time Neptune was in Aries was in 1861, and we had a lot of civil wars and revolutionary uprisings happening all over the world at that time, obviously the most famous of which was the American Civil War, which was a fight for freedom, a fight for an ideal cause for the equality of humanity, a righteous cause. Let's hope that, in areas of life where things are out of balance and out of whack and we need to get active over a righteous cause, that is what happens during this time. Now, friends, I'm going to have so much more to say on the whole topic of Neptune in Aries when we reach the conjunction of Saturn and Neptune at 0 degrees of Aries coming up in February. But I'm excited about that conjunction. I have so much to tell you about that conjunction. But for now, let's celebrate the movement of Neptune into Aries and all the promise that it brings, as well as everything we've had the opportunity to learn while Neptune has been in Pisces for the last 14 years. I did do a video late last year about that effect, Neptune in Pisces for the last time, what we may have learnt, how we may have grown, where that emphasis has gone for us. You can check out that video in the Astro Weather Report playlist if you're interested. But for now, let's dive into what this is going to mean for each sign generally over the next 14 years. Well, here is this week's Astro Weather chart utilizing my Astro Wheel. Remember, if you would like an Astro Wheel, they are available on my website, Guiding Star Astrology. Now, this Astro Wheel is showing you Aries as the first house, where Neptune, the blue planet there in the description, I'll point it out to you. Here it is right here, is in the first house. So what does this mean for us for the next 14 years if we're Aries rising, sun or moon? Well, when Neptune goes through the first house, it's a time when we're going to change our look in some way. We might become chameleon-like, hard to pin down in terms of our look, our image, our presentation to the world. So you're going to become very changeable while Neptune is in your sign, particularly depending on the degree of your ascendant, of course, or your sun or your moon, as the case may be. If they're in the first decan, then it's in the early part of this 14-year sojourn that you're going to go through a lot of changeability and chameleon-like energy regarding what you look like. If your sun, moon, or rising degree is in the second decan, well, it's more to the middle of this transit of Neptune that you'll experience that. If your sun, moon, or rising degree happens to be in the third decan, then you'll experience this in the latter part of the 14-year transit. So Neptune is very psychic, and it tends to soak up other people's feelings very easily. So during this time, you might get a lot of psychic downloads, psychic intuition. There can be so many insights and prophecies that you actually can tap into and align with. You may even become very prophetic yourself if you've got that tendency in your natal chart. Also, you can be very attuned to the vibration of unconditional love, making more loving connections that are very high level, if you like. Even forgiving people might be on the cards a lot more during this particular transit. Your mission in life can actually be to love others more during this 14-year transit. You might even find that your mission has to do with creating fine art or beauty or music, all inspired from the divine, because Neptune is this high-level expression when it's transiting the first house and it's doing good things. That all depends, of course, on the condition of Neptune in your natal chart, of course. Now, there is this hunger for unconditional love, and if you feel like it's not being fulfilled in your life during this transit of Neptune through the first house, you might be looking to escape the third dimensional reality because it's just not cutting it. We are divine souls having a human experience, and we are looking to connect in that divinely loving way. And if that eludes us during this transit of Neptune, we may retreat and isolate ourselves. Certainly when I had this transit for the majority of the time in the sign of Pisces, that's exactly what I did. But some people may choose to escape through other mechanisms that are very Neptunian: sleep, drugs, alcohol. So do be careful what draws you in to escape from the harshness of reality with. Now, this can also make your personality somewhat fluid, as well as your personal self-expression. So one day you might be in a certain energy and wanting certain things out of life, having certain ideals and dreams and goals, etc., etc. And the next day you're a completely different expression of energy. So it's very fluid personality. And oftentimes when we have Neptune natally in the first house, we tend to adapt to what we think other people want, and we take on that mask. Now that can also apply during this 14-year transit of Neptune in Aries, where you might be pretending or taking on the mask, or taking on the persona of what you think the people around you want you to be. So do keep in mind the necessity to be as authentic as possible, because it will require your conscious action to do so. And it's a much healthier place to be than in that state of mask wearing, of course. There can tend during this 14-year transit to be a lack of discernment. So sometimes we can sort of open ourselves up to sort of victim circumstances where we're taken advantage of, or people take advantage of us. It's like our personal barriers become weak because Neptune dissolves the boundaries that we might otherwise have in our life and put in our life. So our boundaries become weakened, and therefore we get involved in things we never thought we'd get involved in. We become a person we never thought we'd be. We actually, take on other tendencies, maybe absorbing the tendencies of the people around us rather than sticking to our own ideals and philosophies, of course, as well. So other people can project their opinions and expectations onto you at this time too. So Aries, it's going to take a lot of conscious awareness for you to avoid that outcome with this Neptune transit here. You can find that when Neptune transits the first house, we can tend to retain more water in the body. Neptune is water energy, and of course in the house of the body we tend to hold on to more water. We can also tend to hold on to more toxic substances in our body. We can become more susceptible to drugs and toxic substances and more susceptible to allergies as well when Neptune is transiting the first house. So do protect your body as much as possible. Flush your system if you have to take any kind of drugs or medicines so that they get released quicker. Also, it's a really good time to have those sorts of medicines at the time of the waning moon, or even better at the time of the new moon, when we're releasing things out of our body quite significantly. And even just after the full moon is also a good time for releasing toxins out of the body. So take your medicines at that time if possible. But there's also something very magical about Neptune transiting through the first house. You might become very glamorous. You might become very fairy tale like in your image. In fact, your life might become somehow like a fairy tale, like a magical dream come true. So in many ways, that can be an exciting outcome. I feel like that's been my life while Neptune's been in the first house. It's been hard. It's been, oftentimes I've wanted to escape the harshness and horribleness of reality, but in many ways, I've had this fairy tale life of rising into the opportunity to do astrology online, meeting the love of my life, now moving to America. Like, this is like a fantasy to me. Like, it doesn't even feel real. So these are the kinds of fairy tale like experiences that can happen when Neptune transits through the first house. Suddenly things can become very glamorous. There might even be some sort of a magnetic pull that you will have on other people. This is the house of you after all, Aries. So you might have a magnetic pull on others during this time. Be aware that you can receive images and fake impressions and therefore be very susceptible to mental health issues during this time. If you have a low vibe Neptune in your chart, and we've talked about what that can look like, you might be more susceptible to, if you want to call them, attacks from con artists, liars, swindlers, or you might become that way yourself, deceiving people, which is obviously one of the worst case scenarios for your karma. Sometimes people, when they're having a transit of Neptune to the first house, they can put up a smoke screen and present this fake persona, no conscious as well as no boundaries. So that would be my forewarning, forearming you, my beautiful Aries friends, about what's right and wrong with this transit. A lot of the times things become blurry with Neptune, and things might get a bit blurry about what you should and shouldn't do and what's right and wrong for you. And we're going to go backwards through the horoscope now. We are looking at Neptune transiting through the second house. This is for Pisces rising people. You can see Neptune here in the second house of Aries. Well, the next 14 years is going to be this transit. It can be a little bit difficult, Pisces. Be aware of this. I to be honest, as a Pisces rising person, but you can also consider this for a Pisces sun and moon person as well. It is a difficult placement because this is a material house. It's the house of our resources, our earthly reality. And here you've got one of the most spiritual, divine level planets transiting here. So it's like oil and water. They don't mix that well, the house and the planet. Neptune in Aries, it does its thing. But the house and the planet are a little bit at odds here. Now, if you have good aspects to your natal Neptune only good aspects, we talked about this in the introduction, then this can be a really helpful material time where you can grow your resources almost miraculously, where material miracles can happen in your life, getting windfalls and getting lucky breaks materially, etc., etc. But if you've got a mixed bag of Neptune aspects in your natal chart, it can be very difficult on a material level. You'll have to keep your awareness about you. You'll have to act with consciousness about your material goods in life. If you have only negative aspects to your Neptune, be prepared that it could be rather challenging, perhaps potentially somewhat destructive on a material level as well. So with that in mind, what can you do to shore things up for you going forward into the next 14 years? Knowing astrology is what gives us power. Okay, I've got a difficult Neptune in my chart. I'm going to make sure that I invest my money in some really solid conservative bank account that allows my money to grow and improve over time, rather than doing any get-rich-quick schemes, rather than doing anything a little bit crazy. I'm going to be sensible, and I'm going to save as much as I can during this time. But let's talk a little bit more about what might happen during this transit of Neptune through your second house. Well, there might be influence upon your family, because in Vedic astrology, this is one of the houses connected to our family. So family might have a more Neptunian influence upon them. They might be becoming more spiritually inclined or connecting more to the higher dimensions in some way, your family members. Another way this might express is that family might be overseas. Neptune rules the oceans, of course, so your family might actually end up being overseas, Pisces. I'm moving to America. Indeed, this is the case. My siblings, my parents, and even my children will be overseas for me. You cannot make this up. Astrology does not lie. So Neptune, family, could be far away, could be overseas, could be becoming more spiritual. Family could also be becoming more creative as well. Do be careful with bad aspects. This could indicate family might have some issues with mental illness, drunkenness, addiction, and that sort of thing, those Neptune difficult aspects. Now, be aware that Neptune is foggy. It's misty. So you might become a bit foggy about money, my beautiful Pisces friends, not knowing how much money is in your bank, how much you're paying to insurance companies, where the money's going. So try very hard, Pisces, to keep records and accurate awareness of what is happening with your money. Money can also appear magically as well as disappear magically. Forewarned, forearmed there. You can be a little bit Neptunian about material things, and that means being a bit naive, a bit unfocused, a bit ambivalent. Oh, money doesn't matter, and it'll be all right, and the divine's got my back, which is a great way to be. You're going with the flow, very Neptunian, of course, but once again, it's a good idea in this grounded third dimensional reality to ensure your possessions or have a savings account that you don't touch. Something that's there just for an emergency is very sensible while Neptune is transiting the next 14 years here. There is a remedy for this transit, which is a challenging one, let's face it. That is to carry some sort of Neptunian picture in your wallet. So what does Neptune rule? Neptune rules dolphins. Neptune rules the oceans. Neptune rules oils. Neptune rules anything that is fake and pretend. So, put something fake in your wallet. Put a fake coin out of your children's cash register toy box into your wallet. And having a fake coin, very Neptunian. Put a picture of a dolphin in your wallet. What that will do, that will attune the energy of your money sector, your wallet, to receiving more money during a Neptunian transit. These are some of the remedies that I discuss in my remedies class in the Royal Stars Academy if you choose to study astrology with me. Now, one last thing, my Pisces friends, you might have a bohemian attitude to money. Be more about how I can share my possessions and be charitable with my things. I'm not going to be too clingy. Yes, I'm going to flow with what I have. They can come and go with ease because I'm not attached to my material possessions. I'm not invested in my material reality in the conventional sense. Also, just to close, Pisces, you can also make money through Neptunian things during this transit as well. What are Neptunian things? Liquids, oils, photography, filmmaking, pharmaceuticals. Your imagination can make you money. Dreams, sleep, hypnosis, spiritual activities. All of these things can make you money. There's many more things that Neptune rules that can be a source of making money for you, Pisces. If you're interested in understanding fully the rulerships, I'd encourage you to do my first level of the Royal Stars Academy, where our foundational course is focused on what all the planets, signs, and houses rule. Thanks so much, my beautiful Pisces friends. Moving right along. If you are an Aquarius rising, sun or moon person, not only do you have that monster stellium in your first house right now, but you also have Neptune in the third house. Let me point him out. So that is your third house in whole sign astrology. You know, the Dalai Lama has this placement in his natal chart, actually. So who knows, you might become a spiritual guru with this transit. But Neptune's way of thinking is what we're focused on during this 14-year transit of Neptune in the third house. And this can mean you might be a bit off with the fairies, lost in the clouds, daydreaming constantly, fantasizing, rarely focused on the business at hand. What's wrong with that? Take the time to dream and imagine, because there is power in our imagination, more so than we realize in the third dimensional reality. Put your dreams out there for the universe. I am not the hugest fan of Abraham Hicks. I was for a while, but I think there's a few things a little bit skewed with that ideology. Just the same, I do agree that it's a good idea to put things into the vortex. In other words, have your vision before you. What do you want life to be, life to look like, life to become for you? This energy is something you can utilize during this transit of Neptune the next 14 years in your third house. So, yes, you can be also very Neptunian in your thinking, yes, off with the fairies, etc., but you can be very psychic as well. There is actually quite a capability here with this transit for you to channel information from invisible worlds, to receive psychic downloads. You may become something of a prophet. Also, because this is a house to do with media and writing and communications, you can become quite brilliant at poetic literature, or you might just develop a really strong interest in poetic literature, or art, or media production that's of a more romanticized, glamorous variety. Now, if you happen to be somebody who works in fantasy realms, maybe you're a fantasy writer, or maybe you're creating beautiful imagery, or you're doing some sort of filmmaking, communicative realms that are very Neptunian, it's going to be a great season for you. You know, if you're involved in advertising, your advertising techniques are going to get a more glamorous tone to them. If you're involved in spiritual communications, well, this is just going to enhance your capabilities no end. Your fantasy writing capabilities, my God, are going to be off the Richter scale. Absolutely brilliant fantasy writing is going to be produced by Aquarian people during this time. If you're involved in advertising or marketing, you're going to have a really strong capacity to spin an image that isn't quite reality. You'll become the spin doctors of the next 14 years. In some senses, able to propagandize others, but also able to pull the wool over people's eyes or deceive them with your marketing and your advertising as well. Hopefully that's not the case, and you actually just create a glamorous advertising world rather than something that's deceptive. I want to just encourage you, Aquarius friends, please be careful when you're undertaking any business contracts, especially if there are any difficult aspects to your natal Neptune. Watch out for mistakes and deceptions and confusions, as well as lost documents, lost emails, lost letters during this transit for the next 14 years as well. It's good to have backups. Back your computer work up every day, back your emails up, all that sort of thing. Now, if you have only easy aspects, all the lovely trines and sextiles, even to some extent some conjunctions to your Neptune, you might find that contracts come together like magic. Contracts just fall together easily. You don't have to push or coerce or negotiate. It just happens. That can be great if you're somebody who works in the fields to do with contract making. Be careful of getting distracted when you're driving. This is the house of transport. When you're traveling, you might just be, off with the fairies. You know that feeling when you get home from a drive, maybe you've been driving for 3 hours, big long trip, and you get home and think, hang on, how did I get here? What way did I go? I don't even remember. You were off with the fairies. That can happen, so do be aware that that may be the case. Try and be as conscious as you can. Maybe you might like to turn on your GPS and that sort of thing where required. Also, you might get distracted if you're learning something or reading something or writing something. You start writing one topic and it ends up on another topic and you're all over the place. So be conscious of that too, especially if you're studying during this era, this 14-year period. If you're doing any sort of research work or exams and that sort of thing, it could be very difficult under this transit. A lot of people might have enjoyment of romantic getaways during this time. Neptune is to take a break, take a holiday, and the third house is to have short trips. So romantic weekends away, traveling to sort of lovely romantic local destinations might be on the cards more so than usual the next 14 years. You might find that you are, back to communication here, communicating in very poetic ways, musical ways, artistic ways, and you might be communicating and speaking and talking a lot about spirituality and angelic wisdom. You might even end up doing some workshops or creative weekends and that sort of thing that have a spiritual tone to them. Going and hanging out with other spiritually minded people might be on the cards. Now, this is also the house of our siblings. So do be aware that your siblings can be a little bit vulnerable at this time, or might become very Neptunianly naive or easily misled, might be open to being deceived or having the wool pulled over their eyes in some way. Remember that Neptune can also represent rage deep down that's hidden by a mask of politeness and sweetness. So know that, maybe your siblings might be going through those sorts of things as well. And try and be the compassionate, supportive elder sibling in those instances. If you have high manifesting energy in your chart, and if your Neptune is healthy and strong, you will find that you have a refined sense of beauty, and you attract more spiritual people into your life. And there might even be, talking of siblings, an unconditional love that develops between you and your siblings right now. You might feel closer to them than ever before. That's if you've got a good Neptune in your natal chart. One other thing that could happen is that you might also lose a sibling to a faraway country, my beautiful Aquarius friends. I would imagine that it's quite possible I do have an Aquarius sun sister who indeed is losing her sibling, me, to an overseas country. So look at that. You cannot make this stuff up. Astrology is amazing. Now, you, my Aquarian friends, might have the opportunity to become something of a dream interpreter. You might be channeling higher information through your dreams and be able to communicate that prophetically with the world at large. You might also enjoy, during the next 14 years, reading fantasy novels or spiritual books. You might also find that you could develop imaginary friends. Now, that might sound kooky especially if you're my age, but talking to, imaginary beings, like, I've got to admit, like, and I'm Pisces rising, so highly Neptunian style of person, I actually do that. So confessions here to my Aquarian friends. Aquarius can be very grounded and realistic, and you're probably going, oh my God, Kesenya, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Well, let's talk to you in 14 years time, Aquarius, and see if you happen to, talk to your spirit animal, or some sort of divine being that you can see through your mind's eye with you in some way, shape, or form. Now, magical experiences, my Aquarian friends, can happen with friends or groups. You can also access the divine realms through what you read about, where your thinking goes, through discussions and through conversations with friends. So to my way of understanding Aquarius, this is quite a beautiful energy for you to up your spiritual understanding, your spiritual knowledge and wisdom. In that sense, it's going to be quite a fabulous 14-year period. Capricorn, as you can see, if you're rising sun or moon Capricorn people, you will find that Neptune is on an angle in the 4th house Aries for the next 14 years. Let me point out where Neptune is. So that's your 4th house in whole sign astrology. Now, Neptune is a nebulous planet, very fluid, very hard to pin down. And this is the house of our family, our heritage, our roots, our lineage. And something might become over the next 14 years a bit murky, a bit unclear, a bit foggy about your lineage, your family. It's not like there are skeletons in the closet coming out, although that can sometimes happen where you discover something about your family and all of a sudden you're like, hang on, my family's not who I thought they were. Now I don't know what is our true ancestry, what is our true heritage. That can happen, but for some people it could just be that they forget what their childhood was like. They forget the good things that happened in their childhood or the bad things that happened in their childhood. Maybe they become very nostalgic about their childhood. Neptune has associations with nostalgia, looking back on things and seeing them through rose-colored glasses. So these are some of the expressions of Neptune when it's transiting through the 4th house. Now, if you have Neptune with difficult aspects in your natal chart, we talked about that in the introduction, you might find that there is some sort of difficulty with the parents during this time. Maybe they become a bit unstable. Maybe they become a bit addicted to something. Maybe they become a bit confused, or they're keeping secrets from you in some way. Maybe they're escaping in some way, like be that in a healthy way or a bad way, but they're escaping, and that can mean literally they move far away from you during Neptune's transit of the 4th house. Maybe they become, they go overseas to live overseas for a time. So it's like the parents representing the roots and the lineage of your family suddenly get dissolved. And maybe even the connection to a family home is dissolved. Maybe you're 50 years old, your parents have always lived in the same old house, and along comes this transit, and you find that your parents up and sell the house and move to, a country halfway around the world. And you have not only lost the connection to family, but your home connection, the place you always called home is dissolved as well. Now, sometimes we can see our parents becoming more martyring and more self-sacrificing when Neptune transits through the 4th house. Maybe even as a parent ourselves, we might become more that way while Neptune transits here. Another way this can express is that we become too permissive as a parent, because Neptune is boundaryless. So we don't put the parameters in place that children actually need and crave to have a healthy upbringing. Your parents, you might perceive them as moving into sort of too much martyrdom for somebody else. You might see that happening with your parents as well. Sometimes we see our parents, or we ourselves as parents, can become enablers who end up getting taken advantage of by our children. So don't do that to your parents, my beautiful Capricorn friends, and hopefully your own children won't do that to you. Also, this is a transit to be careful with properties if you have a difficult Neptune in your natal chart. There can be water damage, there could be gas leaks, there can be foundational damage. So do make sure you double check those things, make sure all the pipes, etc. are working fine throughout the course of the next 14 years. So there are some antidotes to Neptune in the 4th house that can cause these problems when we have a difficult Neptune in our natal chart, and that is to live by the water or by the ocean or on an island or just in a private location. When we're doing those positive Neptune things, there's less likely to be a gas leak or a water leak or flooding or that sort of thing. Or you could even have a home with a private room or a prayer room or a meditation room. All of those things are Neptunian. Bring them into your home home space in a positive way. Places of privacy are also quite essential during this transit. In actuality, these types of places are beneficial for all people. It's good to have those sorts of things. But here with this transit going on, Capricorn, it's more imperative for you. Now, with good aspects to your Neptune in the natal chart, your home is going to become more like a retreat for you during this transit, like a place of escape. Your home might feel like a day spa or like a fairy tale place. Neptune is refined and beautiful at its highest expression, and so your home, 4th house, can become this way too. You might even end up living in some kind of fairy tale castle, or maybe put a fairy garden down at the bottom corner nook of your property. You know, there's something magical and mystical about your home space. Even if you construct it or build it yourself, you will want to include those sorts of details there. Now, your mother, in the positive sense, or your family line, or your parents in general, 4th house energy, with a high quality Neptune in your chart, might be very charitable and unconditionally loving during this transit. They may be discovering a lot of spiritual truths and starting to go very deep with their own spirituality. They might become very creative as well. Maybe they take up singing or dancing or photography or art or music. They might even enjoy films more than usual. Maybe they start to, have some glamour photography taken, or maybe they involve themselves with medicine or healing in some way. It's a very angel-like influence. You might just discover that your parents have the energy of healers, and being around them is just comforting and peaceful. That is the highest quality expression of this transit. Again, we might be idolizing our childhood, seeing it as something of a fairy tale, through eyes of nostalgia, or sort of seeing it as a miraculous childhood. You may never have perceived it to be that way before, but this transit can make you start thinking that it is. Again, this is where we live, the 4th house. So not only your parents may move overseas, but you might move overseas or to a foreign country or a faraway place at some stage in the next 14 years. And if you don't live there, you might be taking a lot more trips and living out of a suitcase in some way, in faraway places or other cultures, or by the ocean perhaps even. This is also the house of emotions, and your emotions are likely to become increasingly sensitive during this transit of Neptune through the 4th house. You might pick up on the vibrations of other people very easily and just sense into what they're thinking, but just be careful that you're not being deceived by your perceptions during this time, that you're not seeing behavior or, patterns where they don't exist. Deceiving yourself about what you think other people are feeling deep down. Make sure, if you're picking up on something there, make sure you get clarity on that, and seek the truth before you go reacting to that in any way. So that's what I'm seeing happening for our beautiful Capricorn friends when Neptune transits the 4th house. When Neptune is transiting the 5th house for Sagittarius, rising, sun and moon people, that means Neptune is here. Let me show you. So that's the 5th house, which is Aries for Sagittarius rising people. So during the next 14 years, you might find that the barriers and limits to having fun and experiencing pleasure in life are all removed. It is a great transit for having more joy, having more fun. So fun can also come through very Neptunian things like romantic novels and poetry, mysticism, bohemian experiences and subcultures might be a source of joy and fun for you. Magic might be a source of joy and fun for you. Spirituality will really float your boat for the next 14 years. Now, I want to just suggest, Sagittarius and my Saggy friends, you probably need to be quite aware of this. Watch out for pleasures coming through the more negative Neptunian expressions, which are drugs and alcohol, because there's no limits or boundaries to having fun and joy with Neptunian things here, meaning you can spend a lot of the time being drunk. So forewarned, forearmed, be very, very careful. Try to choose to have fun with the higher octave Neptunian expressions rather than the addictive lower octave ones. Now, if your natal Neptune has good aspects, you are likely to experience at least an interaction with a soulmate once in this 14-year transit. Whether it lasts or not, Neptune is nebulous, hard to say without seeing a natal chart, of course, but let me just say you will encounter some kind of soulmate experience during this time. It could be a fairy tale-like experience, a fantasy-like love, an unconditional love, a refined love. You might even connect with some sort of musical partner or an artistic partner or a soulful person in a romantic way. Many of you Sagittarius people who are already partnered might start to see your own partner through those sorts of romantic rose-colored glasses, taking the vibration of your relationship to a high, unconditionally loving level. I love this energy. My David has this going on, so bring it on. It's beautiful. Also, this is a house of creativity, and with Neptune here for the next 14 years, and if you've got a good Neptune in your chart, you can really embrace the highest level of creativity. Your creativity is going to come in at a very refined and elevated level. You can create mystical art, mystical music, highly imaginative writings and insights, very prophetic kinds of insights in your writings as well. There's a real connection to the invisible worlds. You can be channeling information from the divine realms and sharing it creatively with the world in some way now, maybe as a prophet, maybe through writing, maybe through art or music, whatever creatively floats your boat. So this is a placement for becoming, or for our children. And so if you are a Sagittarius person who has children, you might find that suddenly they're getting very psychic themselves, or they're very artistic, or they're very dreamy, or, they're always off with the fairies, or, talking to an imaginary friend, or maybe they're in La La Land a lot. Don't criticize them for that. I grew up as a Pisces person who was always in that space and always getting criticized for it. It's not nice. Love your children. This is an energy that they are experiencing at this time. It is not bad. It is not good. It just is energy. So love them. That's really the main thing we need to do as parents. Love our children. But you might find that your children become quite spiritual during this time. They can be really angelic children at the highest octave of this expression as well. But you may need to protect your children quite strongly from negative influences in the world, because there's no boundaries with Neptune, no boundaries in your children's lives. They can experience all the good and all the bad. There's no limits. So watch out for children becoming too innocent, too vulnerable, too lost, needing direction and protection. Also watch out for children who might become addicted. Now, there's good addictions and bad addictions. If they're addicted to going to the gym, all the more power to them. If they're addicted to drugs that is destroying their life, if they're addicted to a Ozempic or whatever it is, even prescription drugs like that, just be aware of what's going on in your children's lives, lest they get lost to addiction during this transit in the negative. Now, some Sagittarius people might get the impetus to actually adopt children, because what Neptune brings is unconditional love towards children here, compassion for children, charity towards children. So you might foster a child or adopt a child, giving unconditionally to children. It does not necessarily your own in this case. So many of you Sagittarius people will perhaps get involved in children's charities, and this is actually a really great remedy to any Neptune problems that you might experience, especially if you've got a difficultly placed Neptune in your natal chart. Do charity for children's services during this particular transit for the next 14 years. You will absolutely knock out of the park a lot of that negative energy that Neptune might otherwise bring. So there can be a natural tendency towards acting and performance here, particularly on film, not so much on stage, but particularly on film here. So, you might be really, given opportunities to perform more, but also you'll probably seek out opportunities to perform, whether that's, some refined musical performance, or performing creatively in some way, or showing up on YouTube with a presentation that's very refined and elegant and sophisticated. That's Neptune transiting the fifth house for the next 14 years. Neptune is also sleep. And the fifth house is our creativity. You could get creative downloads and inspirations when you're sleeping. So don't forget, my Sagittarius friends, to keep a book by your bed, to write down any ideas that pop into your mind at 3 o'clock in the morning. Do be careful. I'll just repeat this one. Do be careful not to be taken advantage of by your children or your lovers who pull the wool over your eyes or deceive you. Remember to forgive and be kind. Absolutely, Neptune energy is that. But don't be taken for a fool. Don't have unrealistic expectations of the people in your life. Try to stay as grounded as you can regarding your children and the lovers in your life. Scorpio rising, sun and moon people, well, Neptune is moving into your 6th house for the next 14 years. Here is Neptune. So what's it all about when Neptune is transiting the 6th house? I've got to tell you, Scorpio, this is rather a difficult position because just like for Pisces people who have Neptune transiting the 2nd house of material resources, the 6th house is a very earthbound house as well. It's a house of work. It's a house of service. It's a house of duties. And Neptune's quite that opposite energy. In fact, Neptune is most associated with 12th house energy, which is opposite this Aries placement. Okay, what does this mean? The 6th house wants to work and to be perfect with schedules and routines, to be timely, to be organized, to be practical. What does Neptune want? Neptune wants to daydream, to fantasize, to take things at his own pace, to flow, living in our own head, not quite in the present. What an oil and water combination. So what Neptune does here, remember planets in houses are stronger than the energies of the houses themselves. So Neptune dissolves our ability to tackle problems, to resolve issues, to keep a schedule, to be organized, to be structured. So it's really imperative, Scorpio, that you learn to just go with the flow and trust the divine. Trust the universe and where it's putting you and what it's doing in your life. Now, if you happen to be a Scorpio person who employs others, watch out because this is the house of your employees. Your employees can become unreliable. They might struggle with time management. They might bring Neptunian gossip into the workplace. Don't be, too hard on them about this because that's the energy in your chart that you're carrying that's making it like that. But try and be compassionate yet firm. Try to bring in boundaries for your work employees. It may be hard to do so. It will require a lot of consciousness. Just know Neptune here might be dissolving the boundaries in the workplace, and your employees might be getting away with a little more than they might otherwise have done. Forewarned, forearmed, my employers who are Scorpios here. You might find that it's a good idea to work in an industry that is more free-flowing yourself for the next 14 years, maybe a creative field or a spiritual field, maybe something to do with healing, something to do with medicine or pharmaceuticals, something to do with health and well-being is a great area to work in, but particularly sort of spiritual healing, spiritual health and well-being. So maybe doing art therapy or music therapy or dance therapy. These things would be very Neptunian to bring to a house of problems. So you could be helping people solve their inner imbalances through those sorts of Neptunian medical interventions, so to speak, as well. So they're great industries to work in when you've got Neptune transiting here. It is a time of helping others compassionately, but it's not about doing so in a conventional manner with rules and regulations. You need to do more Neptunian things with a Neptunian time frame to channel this energy well for the next 14 years. You might like to try creating lists and sticking to them, or consciously working on time management to help you out during this time. Also, it depends on what your natal chart does speak to. Some of us are more geared that way than others, but be very careful of picking up on the energy of other people's problems. This is a house of problems. Neptune dissolves barriers, and here in the house of problems and conflicts and disadvantage and troubles, you could easily absorb this energy into your own life and begin to manifest it yourself. So cleansing your energy is a really healthy thing to do for the next 14 years, Scorpio. Learn to, when you have a shower in the evenings or in the morning even, it's a good idea to have a shower in the evening and to just practice energetically, washing off, brushing off, anything that you've absorbed during that day. See it, visualize yourself cleaning. The sixth house is cleaning your energy field. It's a great thing to do. So that's what one of the ways we can handle Neptune in this sixth house. So absorbing the energy of difficult people is not what we want. So surround yourself with high vibe people who inspire, who uplift, who are positive, and they're not victims. This is the house of victimhood. Oh, poor me, it's not fair, life's been so hard, everything happens to me, blah blah blah. Whip out the victim card out of your wallet there. You want to surround yourself with people who are not that way. The high vibe people, the people who can manifest good in their lives, Surround yourself with those sorts of people. You will absorb their energy and you'll be far better off. Try to avoid those people who are emotionally imbalanced and blame everything on everybody else. People with lower motivations can also take advantage of you. Enemies in your life will tend to work behind your back for the next 14 years. So learn to visualize barriers of protection. This is not just about cleaning your energy field, but visualizing barriers of protection and security around you, and practice, putting these spiritual parameters and boundaries in place to protect you. Now, natally, a lot of healers and psychics and medical practitioners have this place, and that's a wonderful way to work with Neptune's energies when he's transiting here for the next 14 years. So, you might become a healer, or you might tap into your psychic capabilities, or you might start to work in the healing medical professions yourself to sort of utilize this energy to its best advantage. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes Neptune in this position can dissolve the need or even the ability to work, especially in conventional areas. So just recognize that that's an energy that may play out from time to time. I'll just mention, if you happen to have your sun, moon, or rising degree in the first decan, that may manifest in the first portion of this 14-year transit. If your sun, moon, or rising degree happens to be in the middle section, so the middle 10 degrees of the sign, then it's likely to manifest in the middle years of this 14-year transit. And of course, in the last decan, the last 10 degrees, the manifestation might occur more towards the end of this 14-year transit of Neptune. So sometimes, you might find that you're drawn to working with farmers. Maybe you're hosting a farmer's market, or you're growing food and produce in your own backyard, because farmers are very Neptunian, and the sixth house is also connected to farmers. If you think about the farming lifestyle, farmers work on their own schedule, not the schedule of the mainstream. Some of them rise with the crack of dawn and go to bed when the sun goes down. Some of them, maybe they're crop growers or whatever. They don't have to stick to any particular schedule because they work with the cycle of their crops. That sort of thing is very Neptunian. So you might be having a lot to do with farmers during this time, where your time is your own. And this is quite likely because this is the house of labor, and farmers do manual labor, of course. It's considered kind of blue-collar work, I guess, but Neptune makes it very free and easy. So the combination of Neptune and the sixth house could even see you becoming a farmer in some way, Scorpio friends. You might also find that you start to work in the pharmaceutical industry, or in service industries to do with Neptunian places, like in jails or in hospitals or day spas or retreats even. Now, this is a house of our health and well-being, or our illnesses. So illnesses that are very Neptunian might be more likely to manifest during the next 14 years. Be aware of this. You might be more prone to funguses, candidas, eczmas, allergies. Knowing that that is coming from Neptune's transit here may help you deal with those things if they should arise. Sometimes Neptune in the sixth house can bring very obscure and difficult to diagnose conditions as well. One thing I want to encourage Scorpio people to be very aware of is becoming a hypochondriac. Neptune's transit here can really make us, I'm a victim of my health. Again, the victim card comes out, poor me, I'm so sick, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying people don't get a lot of terrible, undiagnosable illnesses and have a lot of struggle in life. Please don't think I'm mocking people who are going through that. but I'm sure we've all met at least once in our life somebody who is a hypochondriac, and it's quite maddening to everybody who has to interact with that person around them. Sometimes, of course, with Neptune here, we might be more susceptible to addiction. Neptune rules addiction in the house of self-soothing. That's what the 6th house is. And once you get into an addictive habit, it's very difficult to break it with Neptune transiting through the 6th house. So, Neptune lacks the willpower or the structure to break a self-soothing addiction. So forewarned, forearmed, Scorpio, don't even start on the ciggies. Don't even go down the road of, that hard drug that you were thinking you might try. Not while Neptune's in your 6th house. It's not a good idea. It could ruin your life. Now, if you have a Neptune that has only good aspects in your natal chart, you will have an experience of the most profound, miraculous healing, channeling divine energy. And even if you are a healer yourself or you've ever had tendencies in that direction, you could provide miraculous cures for your own clients with this transit. This could be a powerful time for that in your life. Well, my lovely Librans, look at you. You've got Neptune down here in the 7th house. This is in whole sign astrology. What does it mean? If you have a Neptune that has difficult aspects in your natal chart, then the lower manifestation of this energy could be what you have to grapple with over the next 7 years. If you're in a relationship, Libra, you might not be able to see your partner clearly. You might be deceived by a partner, cheated by a partner, misled by a partner. You might have unclear expectations from your partner and then be very disappointed when the partner does something that, you didn't think they would do. So also, you've got to watch out for the savior complex with Neptune here, needing to save your partners or become a martyr for your partners. Now, this can be your marriage partners, but it could also be a business partner, somebody that you collaborate with on a business level. It could be your clients that you're dealing with or the audience that you have. Lots of maybe problematic people as your audience or your clients, perhaps Libra, over the next 14 years. Somebody who expects you to solve all their problems or wants to dump all their shit on you, and you may just end up taking it all, Libra. Forewarned, forearmed against that happening. There might also be a tendency, Libra, to spiritualize every relationship that you have. This could be like looking for the karmic lesson here is this, or this person's come into my life. Yes, they're a raging addict, but they've come into my life to teach me to be more compassionate. BS to that, Libra. Don't fall for that martyrdom, victimhood kind of approach with your relationships. It's just not healthy. So try to avoid that sort of, I'm the savior, I will save you, I'm going to spiritualize this relationship kind of thing, if you can. Now, sometimes partners can become more Neptunian-like during this transit. Maybe they become a little disorganized, a little imaginative, which could be wonderful, a little dreamy perhaps, off with the fairies, not quite in touch with material reality in some way. Maybe they even, in the positive, could become quite fairy tale-like. They become your Prince Charming or your Princess of Mars or whatever. You could find that you idolize your partner in some way, for better or worse. Be careful of that. In business partnerships, you've got to be very, very careful, particularly about being deceived, being swindled, having the wool pulled over your eyes or tricked by your business partners as well. So do concentrate, Libra, on setting clear boundaries for the next 14 years of this transit. Don't tolerate being taken advantage of. Be honest. Don't mislead your partners, because sometimes it can go the other way where we are being the deceptive one, where we are being the misleading one. So don't do that to your partners. Don't be ambivalent about your relationships. Work hard on your relationships. Invest in your relationships, Libra. I feel like I'm preaching to the converted. I'm talking to Libran people. You know that relationships are everything to you, Libra. So make sure you put the work in. The next 2.5 to 3 years is going to be good for that, because Saturn's going to be there too. But when Saturn leaves at the end of the 2.5 to 3 year transit there, all you've got's Neptune. And if you become ambivalent or lackluster or ho-hum with your relationships, it could be quite damaging. Forewarned, forearmed there. Sometimes, Libra, over the next 14 years, you might become a bit confused about what exactly you want in your relationships. So do the work, my friends, to get clear about what you want and communicate that to your partners. Now, I mean, I'm hearing all the single people going, oh my God, Kesenya, I don't have a partner. You may have clients. You may have an audience. You may be dealing with the public in some way. It's relevant to that as well. Be clear with the public. Be clear with your audience about what you expect from them. Be clear with your clients. Be clear with your business partners. Be clear with your marriage and relationship partners as well, and you will be more likely to have a good relationship enter in. Clean up your own mind around commitment and committed contractual relationships, which are 7th house relationships, and it will shift the momentum, because clarity is the opposite of the more negative Neptunian energies. So keep this in mind, Libra. Now, the higher manifestations, if you have a really high quality, well-aspected Neptune in your chart, this is a transit the next 14 years where you can really attune to your soulmate. If you're already with them, it's going to take it even deeper and more profound. If you are single, you may find the soulmate you've been longing for, the soulmate you've been looking for. And I will just say, and I mentioned this in my videos from earlier this year when we moved into 2026, this is the year for Libra and also Cancer people to potentially meet partners because of certain Vedic configurations that are forming in the sky. So if you're a Libran person, you've got this Neptune moving through here. Yes, you could, if you have a high quality Neptune in your natal chart, you could enjoy the highest manifestation of love that's unconditional and giving, angelic love, soulmate kind of love that could arrive at some point in the next 14 years. If your Sun, Moon, or rising degree is in the first decan, it's likely to happen in the first third of this 14-year transit. If your Sun, Moon, or rising is in the second decan of Libra, then it's likely to arrive for you in the second portion of this 14-year transit. And of course, if your Sun, Moon, or rising degree is in the last decan of Libra, then it's likely to arrive in the latter third of this 14-year transit, of course. You might find that in business, if you've got a high quality Neptune in your natal chart, you might find in business that you are now partnering with people in very Neptunian careers, doctors, healers, psychics, people who work with the oceans or the petroleum industry, artists, actors, musicians, foreigners, spiritual people. You know, I'm a Libran moon. I'm moving to another country. Of course, I'm going to be partnering and collaborating with foreigners to me, people who are born in the USA when I'm born in Australia. So absolutely manifesting that energy. I can already see it before I even enter the transit. That's going to be happening in my life during this Neptune transit in the house of business collaborations and business partnerships and business contracts. What about you, my beautiful Librans? Do you see any of this energy unfolding for you already? Virgo, rising, sun and moon people, you have Neptune transiting for the next 14 years in your 8th house. Let me point that out to you. So Neptune in the 8th house, you know, Neptune's a vulnerable planet. And he can leave you very open to the psychic forces and darker powers of the universe, Virgo, during the next 14 years. Be very careful of this energy. Even he can leave you open to negative thoughts, to jealousies, because Neptune lacks boundaries wherever he goes by transit. And so he brings his lack of boundaries to the 8th house of the gateway to other dimensions, other realms. Now that can be great dimensions, angelic dimensions, but it can also be the negative spiritual dimensions as well. So protect yourself, learn to protect yourself, visualize, a force field around you, protecting you from negative entities and so forth. My friends, you can actually attune to some more positive energy here, Virgo, by perhaps becoming something of a psychic during this time. You'll be getting prophetic downloads and impressions from the divine. Learn to channel or utilize that energy positively. Maybe you start writing divine poetry or something like that. or inspired film scripts. This could be very Neptune, that just come through for you. Be very careful around automatic writing that may come through now. I have heard terrible stories of people who have been taken over by negative entities through automatic writing when Neptune is transiting through their 8th house, because they open themselves up to these other entities speaking through them, not having the sufficient boundaries that are needed to make sure that it's the right kind of energy at this time. Now, quite obviously, Neptune is a planet that can give very mystical connections. Psychic communications with invisible entities, connection to the divine realms, that can all happen. Neptune is also a brilliant healer. And during this transit, you might develop a healing ability that comes from this capacity to channel higher, pure love and cleansing energy. This is if Neptune in your natal chart is well aspected and strong, giving you good quality channeling capacity. If you have difficult aspects to your Neptune in the natal chart, practice that psychic protection I was talking about. Some of you Virgo people might move into a healing realm that facilitates other people to pass over more smoothly, gently and lovingly, dissolving the pain, dissolving the struggle. So, I can't think of the name of the type of nurses who work with the elderly who are passing on and dying. The name escapes me, I do apologize. But you might find that you're more involved in those sorts of fields because this is a house of death. Now, this is also the house of our spouse's resources. So Virgo, your spouse's resources might suffer with this placement. They might be more susceptible to being scammed or deceived, or potentially you could lose the mutual resources that you have with a partner or with a spouse. Even if Neptune is good in the natal chart, with this transit, you need to be very careful about loss. There can be miraculous gains, miraculous windfalls, miraculous inheritances, and your partner might even move into some sort of miraculous, like, resources that they gain through their work or their wage or something like that. Really fantastic money that comes from, miraculous sources, for the lack of a better word. But just be aware that there can also be miraculous, if you want to call it miraculous, loss as well. So just keep consciousness around that. And I would encourage you, if you have mutual resources with a business partner or with a spouse, have a rainy day bank account that they're not touching, that you're not touching, just in case the proverbial hits the fan and things get tough financially. Neptune is not a roller coaster planet. He's subtle. Very subtle, like the mist creeping in. And before you know it, all the funds are gone. And you're like, where's the money gone? I don't know. And so don't expect a sudden shock like the up and down of a roller coaster that Uranus would bring here. It's going to happen slowly, imperceptibly over time. You might get a shock when you look at the bank account and realize it's all gone. So forewarned, forearmed here. Sexuality is an 8th house thing, and Neptune can bring more gentleness and lovingness into your sexual interactions. Neptune can actually dissolve the hard passion, but it can also be very healing as well. Tantric, sexual, mystical experiences, spiritual experiences that come with orgasm. It can really absorb the negative karma from another person through sex as well. So be very careful about that boundarylessness in a sexual relationship. Be very selective over the next 14 years about who you have a sexual encounter with, lest you attract these dark energies from another person that's transmitted to you sexually. You've got to be so careful with Neptune transiting the 8th house. But the highest octave of this expression of energy can be having this unconditionally loving and tender and gentle sexual intimacy. You could also be very much turned on by fantasy and role play, dressing up in the bedroom. Neptune is to wear a mask. Neptune is to pretend. So even if you've never done that in your life before, you might find that, hey, I want to get into this. This is fun. Let's bring cosplay into the bedroom and do all sorts of scenarios and all that stuff. So that can be actually quite beautiful. And if you are with a partner, Virgo, that's actually a really good way to channel the positivity of Neptune by playing, fantasy with your partner in sexual activity. Now, also, Neptune is to yearn and long for something, dreaming of something. Here in the 8th house, we long for intimacy. We long for a partner. We're yearning for this energy. Neptune in the 8th house, where intimacy is represented. So yeah, the contractual relationships are represented by the 7th house, but that deep connection with another is an 8th house thing. So there's plenty of people who get married. You read horror stories about it. Plenty of people who sign the contract and get married with someone they don't have a deep connection with. Maybe they get married for the money. Maybe they get into a contractual relationship for other reasons. I don't know, to give themselves a class boost in life or whatever it might happen to be. It doesn't necessarily spell out intimacy. But in the 8th house, this is where we want connection. And so Neptune here can actually bring us, firstly, we can dream of that deep intimacy, but it can actually bring us the manifestation of the deep intimacy that we long for in a miraculous way, where we least expect it, it creeps into our life and we're like, wow, this is the highest expression of unconditionally loving, deep intimacy and connection that I've always wanted. Now, Neptune rules prayer. And this is a house of healing from traumas, healing from addictions, healing from difficulties. So when you pray Neptune energy, you can receive miraculous healing and miraculous support from invisible realms, especially to heal traumas. I would also add, my beautiful Virgo friends, that you can also get involved in art therapy, music therapy, dance therapy. Neptune has associations with all those mechanisms, and here in the house of therapy for our psychological problems, it's a winner. Some of you might become art therapists, music therapists, dance therapists, and it's a great avenue to pursue under this influence of energy, my beautiful Virgo friends, for your own healing and benefit and restoration, and to also offer in a really loving, compassionate way to the world at large. Lovely Leos, you have Neptune in the 9th house for the next 14 years, right up here. So what does this mean? Well, this is a house of belief systems, the 9th house, and Neptune is idealistic and utopian. So naturally enough, your belief systems become very idealistic, very much faith in the divine goodness of the universe, utopic belief systems. It's a very spiritual position to have Neptune in the 9th house by transit. You may develop a belief in the unconditional love of the divine. And that might come from what you're seeing miraculously unfold around you in your life, and how the divine and the universe is blessing you and supporting you. This is the house of good fortune, and Neptune is the planet of miracles. So, it might be in response to what you're observing in your life. Certainly, there is the potential for material manifestation of this unconditional love, because Neptune will be making a forward trine to your sun, moon, or rising Leo placement, of course, at some stage over the next 14 years. So this is developing a belief in unconditional love and the all-embracing nature of God or the divine. There's no judgment of other people's beliefs here too. We become much more accepting and tolerant towards the beliefs of other people. Our beliefs might be centered around compassion and love and kindness now. Now, this is not a placement for religious belief per se. It's more belief systems that are spiritual and centered on ideals and centered on like faith and trust with Neptune here. Just trusting that the divine has got your back and knowing that it's going to come through for you, that miracles can happen. This is quite a beautiful transit. Belief systems become quite exalted with a Neptune transit through the 9th house. Now, in traditional astrology, this is also, in Vedic astrology rather, this is the house of fathers. And so you might start to idealize your father. You might find that your father, you know, in a shadow sense of this energy, might be far away from you or hard to get a handle on, hard to understand at this time, might become a bit more detached or maybe becoming somewhat addicted to something. Watch out for that with a father figure as well. They, might be very difficult to get to know. They might be removed from your world in some way. Hey, I'm a Leo sun. I'm going to be living in America. I'm moving there very soon. Can't wait. Very excited. But this is the house of my father figure. And of course, we're going to be in opposite countries. So literally far away. Again, the astrology does not lie. Fathers can be removed from our world in some way or just absent, maybe mentally absent or emotionally absent from our lives in some way during this transit. Also, watch out for either being deceived by your father or your father being deceived by others. They're more susceptible and vulnerable now. So, check in on your dad, make sure he's doing okay when and where you can. Also, your father figures might get involved in some kind of spiritual work or creative work. They might get very invested in their own spiritual development in some way, getting involved in the mystical realms or interested in other sort of more mystical belief systems at this time. Now, we've talked about belief systems, but this is a house of religion as well. And we need to be very careful about being deceived by other people's beliefs or other people's religions when Neptune is transiting through here. This is particularly strong if Neptune in our natal chart has bad aspects to it. We could find ourselves joining a cult during this transit or being misled by someone who is something of a father figure or a teacher or a mentor or a guru. And, maybe at the end of this 14-year transit, we find out, oh my God, they were a terrible person, So be forewarned, forearmed about this. If you travel to foreign countries during the next 14 years, hello, I'm doing that, we need to be careful if we have bad aspects to our natal Neptune because it can indicate getting lost, losing our way while we're over there, losing direction, losing our purpose and our sense of meaning and dharma. Neptune with bad aspects if we're in another country. So literally lost, but also perhaps losing our sense of meaning and sense of purpose and sense of direction, even if we're not in a foreign country with this transit. Now, if your Neptune in the natal chart has good aspects, is a high vibe Neptune, it's going to make you more ethical and more moral, more truthful and very, very kind and very, very compassionate. So when you go to foreign countries with a really positive Neptune in the natal chart and you're having a transit of Neptune to the ninth house, when you go to these foreign countries, you can have magical, miraculous experiences that manifest for you. Good luck, good fortune, good blessing that comes in almost like it's from the divine pulling the strings here. Manifestation of wonderful things, acceptance, blissful happiness. Gorgeous stuff, gorgeous stuff. Now, if you're undertaking some sort of higher education studies during the next 14 years, it's a good idea for them not to be too rule-oriented or stringent or structured in any way or full of boundaries and parameters, Not a good idea to do any mathematical studies unless you've got some really strong planets in your natal chart for doing that sort of thing, because this can cause you to struggle. Neptune's transit through the house of higher education. During this transit, we're better suited to higher educational studies that are more abstract, more fluid, humanitarian subjects, the arts, music, cultural studies, philosophies, fine art, design, dance. These sorts of studies are much more successful when we're having a transit of Neptune through the ninth house, my beautiful Leo friends. Enjoy the next 14 years with this transit through the ninth house is going to be quite a fantastic experience for our Leo friends because it is transiting such an auspicious and spiritual house, the ninth house. Well, hello, my lovely Cancer, rising, sun or moon people. You are going to be having for the next 14 years a transit of Neptune through your 10th house. Let me show you where that is. And so in whole sign astrology, Neptune through Aries, your 10th house, when you have this placement, this by transit it can take a long time for you to get really settled with your career life. Lots of uncertainty. So even if you've been in a career for 30 years, in comes Neptune into your 10th house, and suddenly you're not sure if you want to stay there anymore. Suddenly you're not sure if this is really your purpose, your dharma, the meaning that you want to give to your life. So we become a little bit foggy, a bit misty, a bit unsure when Neptune transits the 10th house about what we should do with our lives. There can also be lots of unrealistic dreams about career as well. Fantasies about what we could do. You might want to fly to the moon or be a rock star. Things that might actually, in reality, be very unrealistic and hard to achieve. Neptune takes us to a whole other plane with what we could and couldn't do in our offering to the world and the legacy that we want to leave when we're gone. Now, it might be harder during this transit, my beautiful Cancer friends, to have 9-to-5 jobs. They're just not our bag, baby, during this transit. It's also particularly hard to follow the rules in terms of structured careers when Neptune is transiting the 10th house as well. But Neptunian careers can actually go very well for you. Now, Neptunian careers can be anything to do with film or photography, art, music, retreats and escapism, holidays, spirituality, healing, being a doctor or a pharmacist or bartending, working overseas or working with foreign concepts like Chinese medicine if you live in a Western country, that sort of thing. Working with oils or plastics or other fake kind of things that aren't real in some way. You know, maybe you're being a fantasy fairy for children's birthday parties or something like that. Working in charity, working in service industries. You'll also have the capacity to work more behind the scenes during the next 14 years as well. Now, even if you're not working in those Neptunian fields, which will go very well and have a lot of success during the 14 years of this transit, even if you're in a completely different field to that, if your job, if your career is much more flowing, for example, you don't start at 9 o'clock, maybe you get up at midday and you work from 2 o'clock in the afternoon till 9 o'clock at night, and you work on your terms. Maybe you're working from home, or you could be working in sort of a community share office where you choose your hours, you choose your time, and you flow with what work hours and work life suits you best. This can go very well for you too, even if you're not working directly in a Neptunian based field. So working in isolation might also come onto the trajectory during this time, but you'll be quite happy about that. It's not going to feel necessarily uncomfortable. There is a liking when Neptune is transiting through the 10th house of being removed from the world in some way. Neptune dissolves things, and with Neptune here, you might end up not having to work at all. Or, it could just be a season when you don't have to work. The reason really depends on the quality of your Neptune in the natal chart. So is your Neptune really positive, like only has good aspects? Well, you may not have to work because maybe you come into a ton of money and working is just not necessary then. If you have a really challenged Neptune with lots of hard aspects to it, then you may not have to work because physically you're not capable of doing so for some reason or another. So it all depends on the quality of your natal Neptune, what it may actually bring you. But as I said, Neptune is going to dissolve things. You may not have to work. If you're not in a Neptunian field or working in a Neptunian way, then you may not have to work at all. This is also the house of authority figures and bosses, and they could be very Neptunian at this time. In the shadow side, they could be very deceptive. They could promise things and not deliver. They could be impossible to pin down and understand, quite slippery kinds of people. But even lots of misunderstandings with bosses. But if you've got a good Neptune in your natal chart, then bosses can be like fairy godmothers to you. Kind, charitable, generous, giving. How fantastic. Watch out, because during the next 14 years, Cancer, you might be exposed to a lot of gossip with this placement. People are going to talk about you. Now, for good or ill, kind of depends on the nature of the aspects to your natal Neptune and the quality of Neptune energy in your chart. But also, public image might be something of a mystery for other people over the next 14 years. They might think, oh, you're really one thing, and oh, this is who you are, and this is your character, and this is the person that you are. And the reality could be something completely different. There's sort of a veil pulled over your public image while Neptune transits through the 10th house. Be aware of that. It could be to your advantage, or it could be to your disadvantage. Your reputation is a 10th house thing, and your reputation could become quite a Neptunian reputation. People might, see you as being otherworldly or mysterious or compassionate and loving or spiritual. Or in the shadow side, they could see, you could develop a reputation that's more shadow Neptune energy, deceptive, unreliable. Maybe a cheater could be the reputation you develop. So watch your karma there, my beautiful Cancer friends. But you know what? Neptune, especially in the chart where he has only good aspects, can give the most magical of blessings. He can be one of the best benefics, but we cannot control Neptune. He's an outer planet. We cannot govern what he does. We have to let the river take us where we need to go and just trust the universe. Let go and let God regarding our career during this transit, regarding our achievements, regarding our social status, because subtle invisible forces are controlling that realm of our life right now. And we just have to have faith that it's what the divine wants, what our higher self orchestrated for us to experience before we incarnated into this earthly reality. I would say enjoy this, Cancer. It's likely to bring a lot of progress in your life. My precious Gemini friends, did you know that you are having a Neptune transit through your 11th house? Let me point it out to you. So there it is in Aries, your 11th house in whole sign astrology. What does this mean? Well, if your natal Neptune has some challenging aspects to it, this could affect your friendships in a difficult way. Your friends, might be not there when you need them to be. A bit hard to pin down, a bit slippery, very passive. They might be misleading. They might take you into some sort of bad habits or escapist behaviors that are difficult for you to get out of. They might be a source of loss in your life. They could even be dishonest. If you have high quality aspects to your natal Neptune, then Neptune's transit here can mean that you have fabulous friends who take you to the higher octave of existence, that help your vibration increase, that bring you a lot of joy and insights and spiritual wisdom during this time, because your friends might be like that. They might be very spiritual, very, very otherworldly and imaginative and creative in the best possible way. So Neptune, wherever he goes by transit, can make our boundaries in that area of life quite weak. So with this placement in the house of friends, be careful about your friends taking advantage of you, because you don't have any boundaries against that at this time. The friends might be unreliable or disappointing. You might give Neptune energy to your friends more than you actually receive from your friends. Forewarned, forearmed there. Now, if your natal Neptune has mostly good aspects to it, it's telling us that your friends during this transit over the next 14 years might be very generous to you, very spiritual, full of unconditional love for you. Now, there still can be a lack of boundaries with friends, but they won't harm you. They won't take advantage of you. They won't take you to a difficult place. You'll be more connected with them, like soulmates, through spiritual connection, through refinement. You might even have a connection with your friends through Neptunian things like art and high-level culture, compassion and charity. This could also indicate that during the next 14 years, you might get involved with some sort of spiritual community or network or group. You might even establish a community or a network or a group that's very spiritual and Neptunian during this time. Another thing that Neptune brings us is the ability to manifest by magic. And this is the house of our gains and our rewards and our successes. And Neptune can magnetically attract things to us. Hello. Neptune is a passive planet, but you won't have to strive and push to bring good manifestation to you, my Gemini friends. This can just naturally land in your lap. You know, the good things of life, the rewards and gains, the big wins in life can just magically manifest and appear in your life. So that's one of the positive ways this energy can manifest. Now, another thing that can happen when we have Neptune in the 11th house by transit is you may have unclear or unrealistic goals at this time, not knowing what you want out of life, not knowing how to go about achieving a goal or a dream. It's confusion around ambitions and goals and aspirations and so forth. The other way this can manifest with the highest vibration of Neptune in the natal chart is it can be that you can have very idealistic goals that you actually make come true. Dreams that come true, dreams that manifest. You can gain momentum and perspective and opportunity that just land in your lap to achieve the gains and the rewards and the goals that you aspire to have. You can be very gainful also through Neptunian themes. Things like spirituality, fantasy, film, music, art, holidays, retreats, escapism, plastics, oils, fantasies, fakeness. Utilize those energetic forms to create more gains for you in some way. The 11th house is the house of your immediate older sibling, if you've got one. And so you might find that they might become a bit Neptunian over the coming years, over the next 14 years. Maybe a bit dreamy, not fully present, perhaps lost in their head. Maybe they become a bit glamorous, or perhaps they're presenting a bit of a false front in some situations. Worst case scenario, an older sibling might become a bit deceptive or cause loss to your life, Neptune energy. But the best case scenario would be an older sibling who becomes divinely inspired, creative, spiritual, perhaps a healer in some way. You might even start idolizing some sort of older sibling, or even a friend or a benefactor you might put them up on a pedestal at this time with a level of adoration that you haven't known before. That's what I'm feeling into for my Gemini, rising, sun and moon friends. Taurus, rising, sun and moon people. Well, the next 14 years is going to be very interesting for you, Taurus, because you have Neptune transiting your 12th house. Let me show you where that is in whole sign astrology. So the 12th house is the natural house of Neptune. There's very many similarities between the two, Neptune energy and 12th house energy. It's a strong indication that the next 14 years might open you up to some sort of mediumistic ability, the ability to visualize and manifest from your visualizations, the ability to get impressions from the divine or recognize symbols that give you information about other realms and how the other realms are operating in earth reality. You might be able to access messages from the angelic realms, from the angels. They might be speaking to you, words to your heart or words to your mind, even in your dreams. And if your natal Neptune has only good aspects, you know you can trust this channeling. You know you can trust these messages from the divine and the prophetic information that they're giving you. When you've got difficult aspects in your natal chart to your natal Neptune, that means this transit of Neptune through your 12th house might indicate not being so quick to trust the message. I'd be more inclined to sort of test things first, make sure that it's the truth and that you're not being deceived by some entity in the divine realm. So with hard aspects in your natal Neptune, this can bring about more fears and phobias and even mental health issues. So that the beginning sign of anything, any hang-ups or fears, phobias, mental health issues, get yourself to a psychologist and get the treatment that you need. There is also a need to learn to protect ourselves energetically here, because the walls between The divine realm and the earth realm are very thin when Neptune transits through this area of the chart. And, unwanted entities can definitely attach themselves to you. They can push you into 12th house addictions as well. So forewarned, forearmed, protect yourself. How do we do that? Well, one way it might be just to have a reminder on your bathroom mirror when you get up in the morning to visualize a force field around you. You are refracting off from the force field surrounding you, the energies of negativity that might be coming at you. I used to visualize, we have a game called AFL football in Australia, for those who don't know, and basically you kick like an American gridiron type football. Check it out on YouTube. There'll be plenty of football games on YouTube. You know what I'm talking about. But I used to also visualize if somebody sort of kicked a football of challenging negative energy into me, including the divine realm, I'd grab that football and kick it right back at them, So that's those visualization protection mechanisms might be very useful for you coming up for the next 14 years. With good aspects, one of the best bits here, if you've got good aspects in your natal chart to your natal Neptune, then a transit of Neptune through the 12th house can mean that you have like a guardian angel protecting you, guarding you, pulling the strings to make sure that you always end up in the right place at the right time, and that miraculous things unfold for you to keep you safe. This is a house of past lives, and with a transit here, there might be sort of recollection, if you were to do a past life regression, or you might even have recollection in your dreams of a past life where you were in isolation, or maybe you were, involved in seafaring occupations, or you were traveling, or there was something artistic about a past life, or maybe you were involved in some sort of divine healing practice. Neptune here brings those past life experiences associated with Neptune to the closer consciousness level. You might even be able to tap into these capacities again. Might develop a love for sea travel. You might develop a love for healing, miraculous healing. Well, if so, these Neptunian things are bringing in these energies from past lives, and that's what you'll be tapping into. Now, if you've got only negative aspects, difficult aspects, hard aspects to your Neptune in your natal chart, this can indicate that you might be tapping into sort of harder past lifetimes where you were victimized, or you had mental health issues, or were deceived or disillusioned, or maybe you were addicted to something, or you were a martyr. These things might be coming close to the surface now, but if they do, they're coming up, bubbling up to the surface for you to become aware of the impacts that they've had on you, and to be able to do the Neptunian thing and dissolve those feelings out of your psychic self and release them through this transit in this lifetime. It's a very mystical, esoteric energy to have Neptune transiting through the 12th house, and it can really provide a source of healing if you work with the energies wisely. Now, your ability to create and produce creative works will be just off the Richter scale. Really vivid, evocative, divinely channeled creative works here now. So beautiful, so lovely. And you'll probably also really be able to tap into the collective level of things, the collective level of humanity, feeling the collective suffering of the human being very, very deeply. And let's face it, it's being revealed to us, the wool's being removed from our eyes. Now we can see just how much humanity is suffering at the hands of the elite now. And this is something that, my beautiful Taurus friends, you will start to know and feel very, very deeply. I'm not saying that you shouldn't feel these things. They can change the world when we become aware of the level of suffering that has been undertaken by humanity. But if you want to protect your heart from the grievous information that might be coming through, do visualization, visualize beautiful things, visualize golden light, visualize healing on the planet. In fact, I would suggest, my beautiful Taurus friends, that you have a tremendous capacity to heal the planet through your visualizations of such things during this time. Being in nature is very, very healthy. Being near water, doing creative work, dancing to purge feelings, doing artwork to purge feelings, poetic writing to release these feelings, these impressions of the collective suffering. If you do that, my Taurus rising and sun and moon friends, you're actually doing so much good for the planet by helping to release and let go of those negative tensions that can sometimes be present. Aries has been doing this for the last 14 years with Neptune's transit through Pisces. So now it's your turn to take up the banner or the baton, as they say, and start doing the work. Aries has done a fantastic job of making humanity aware of the suffering and the realization of the suffering. Now, Taurus, you can do the same and keep that momentum going so that we release the pain on this planet. And with that, I'd like to close and say thank you for joining me for this sojourn through the transits of Neptune in each house of the horoscope over the coming 14 years. If you want more information, more in depth about this transit and what it's going to do in your life, do check out my Neptune Transits Through the Houses playlist. I spend about an hour or so talking about each sign in 12 separate videos, especially for you on this amazing topic. Be blessed for the next 14 years, my friends.